The Return of the Lost Son. Chapter 2. The man they thought was dead. Drake, his children, and the male doctor walked out of the ward, leaving behind nothing but silence. A single tear slipped from the corner of my eye, unnoticed by anyone. Shortly after, a female doctor entered my ward. She checked my vitals quickly, her movements calm but urgent. I was transferred onto a wheeled bed, drifting in and out of darkness, unaware of what was happening around me. Deep down, I had already accepted my fate. She wheeled me out of the ward carefully, avoiding the hospital cameras, and finally guided me into a taxi parked discreetly outside. The driver started the engine and drove away without a word. The female doctor watched until the car disappeared, then turned and walked back into the hospital as if nothing had happened. Hours later, at 6:30 p.m., the hospital buzzed with the usual end-of-day routine. Day duty doctors were preparing to log out when the male doctor, who had made a secret agreement with Drake to end my life, entered my ward holding an injection. He pulled back the bedsheet. I was gone. Panic flashed across his face. He stormed out, questioning nurses and calling for an emergency meeting. Surveillance cameras were checked, corridors reviewed, exits examined. There was no trace of me leaving the hospital. Frustrated and confused, the doctor dismissed everyone. He picked up his phone and called Drake, calmly announcing my death, unaware that Drake and his children had already declared me dead to my mother 3 years ago and were now planning to throw her out of the house. That same evening, in the quiet of a modest home, I lay unconscious on a couch. The door opened, and the female doctor walked in, exhausted. She dropped her bag and sat heavily beside me, breathing out slowly. Moments later, the taxi driver entered. He looked at my helpless body and frowned. "Selena," he said softly, "I know you are kind, but don't you think this will put your job at risk when they find out?" Selena sighed deeply. "I've been taking care of him for the past 3 years. I can't watch them take his life away from him. This is the only thing I can do now. Let's leave the rest to fate." She stood up and gestured toward me. "Help me take him to my room." Together, they lifted me gently and carried me inside. The next morning, the sound of a luxury car entering the compound shattered the calm. The vehicle parked, and moments later, Selena's name was called from the hall. She rushed out of her room to find her siblings, Julia and Adam, standing in the living room, their faces tense. "Sis," Julia said anxiously, "Mr. Back has been here 5 times this week. Today is our deadline. Is he really going to kick us out?" Before Selena could respond, 3 men stepped out of Mr. Back's car. Mr. Back was the CEO of Luma, a massive internet vendor platform where both physical and digital products were sold, and where vendors could easily sign up to sell the goods. Luma was valued at $5 billion and owned countless estates, including the one Selena and her siblings were living in. Mr. Back and the 3 men walked into the apartment. Selena and her siblings stood nervously in the living room. Mr. Back sat down gracefully on the couch and crossed his legs. "Is the money ready this time?" he asked calmly. Selena fell to her knees, her siblings following her. "Sir, please," she pleaded, her voice trembling. "Things are hard for me right now. Can you give me 1 more week? Just 1 week." Mr. Back stood up, his expression cold. "Boys," he said firmly, "get their things out." The men entered the rooms and began packing their belongings into the living room. When they reached Selena's room, they found me lying motionless on the bed. One of them tried to wake me, but I didn't move. Alarmed, they rushed back to Mr. Back and informed him. "Drag him outside," Mr. Back ordered without hesitation. Selena ran forward, crying, "Please, sir, he's my brother. He's unconscious. He had an accident 3 years ago." But Mr. Back refused to listen. The men lifted me and carried me out. As they reached the living room, Selena followed closely, begging them to put me down. Suddenly, I slipped from their hands and fell heavily at Mr. Back's feet. The moment his eyes fell on my face, he froze. His eyes widened in shock. His breath caught. "Jason," he shouted. To be continued.